Hey curious cats, my name is Sahara. Welcome to that true crime channel. Let's get into it. Tonight we're going to Japan. The random item in this video is from Japan, so watch till the end. Takahiro Shiraishi was born in 1990 in the province of Kanagawa in Japan. He's described as a very nice, extremely polite young man. In school, he's considered by classmates as a good listener, but not to the point of being shy or introverted. He's quite social, he has friends. He never misses a day in school. He enjoys athletics and baseball. He is as ordinary as they come. Although an incident did happen, and it was reported by a former classmate from middle school. Apparently, Takahiro liked to play the choking game for fun. Now, I'm assuming my audience is wise, so I think this next piece of information is not going to backfire. But the choking game, or the pass-out game, is a very silly and dangerous game where you're supposed to make a physical effort and then you choke yourself or someone chokes you, but just enough for you to pass out. And supposedly you will have hallucinations and some sort of high. In France, we call it the scarf game because a lot of kids use a scarf, a belt, or something other than their own hands. And FYI, in the past 10 years, 130 kids died from this game. Again, very dangerous game. Apart from this one incident, everything is pretty normal in Takahiro's life. He lives with his parents and his sister in Zama, a city located about 40 minutes southwest of Tokyo. But while he is in high school, things start to fall apart at home. His parents divorce and his mother and sister move out to central Tokyo. So Takahiro stays with his dad in Zama. His father works as a designer for automobile parts. At this point, they start to get really close to one another. They're often seen by neighbors going out to have dinner together, just the two of them. Sometimes they also go out for drinks. They're relatively close. Takahiro studies at the high school of Yokohama, and after he graduates in 2009, he starts to work at a supermarket, and that will last for about 2 years until he decides to quit. He then begins to work as a kaori skuto, a scout. Scouts work at the Kabukicho area in Shinjuku, the most dangerous district of the Tokyo area. Kabukicho is Tokyo's red light district, also known as Sleepless Town. Tokyo's red light district is apparently one of the richest in the world. It's one of the red light districts that makes the most money in the entire world. In Kabukicho, you will find yakuzas, sex clubs, bars, and restaurants. It's quite touristy and it's always very busy. Basically, Takahiro's job consists in him finding women to work as a hostess for clubs. A hostess club in Japan really is a sex club. And do you know what a soap land is? No, it's not a store where you can buy soap. I learned so much stuff making these videos. Not always good stuff, but stuff. A soap land establishment is a place where you can get washed by a woman. It's like a very expensive and sexual car wash, but for people. For men, really. So what they call a hostess in Kabukicho is really a sex worker. It just sounds better to say hostess. So these scouts, they get a commission on the girls they bring. If a woman agrees to just visit a club, the scout will get $50. If she accepts to work there, he will get $100. And the longer she stays, the more he makes. Scouts will usually target vulnerable women who are in debt, or some of them just want the easy money, and some of them come from their own accord, having seen an ad in a magazine or online, and they just wander around in the streets of Kabukicho until a scout approaches them and makes them an offer. And the scout will act as an agent, as a manager. They're close to the girls, they give them advice. They're even closer to them than the owners of the clubs they will work at. These girls, they trust their scouts much more. You have to keep in mind that they bring them money. So usually the scout will be very nice to them. They take good care of them. Really, it's in their benefit to treat these girls nicely. They don't want them working in bad conditions. They want them to work in a club where they feel good and will be treated fairly. So it's more likely for them to work there longer. The longer they work as a hostess, the more money everybody makes. And because the scouts are usually so nice, it's not uncommon for them to actually start a relationship occasionally with one of their girls, which is what happened to Takahiro. This one woman he dated and lived with for a couple couple months. She said he was extremely kind, much, much more than the average person even. Apparently he was so sweet and so romantic. Pimping her out, yes, but sweet and gentle. But she did notice he had a morbid fascination for death and suicide. I wonder where this is going. In May 2017, Takahiro is arrested for being a scout for prostitution rings. Prostitution is not legal in Japan, which is quite obvious, isn't it? And even though it is said that police don't do much about the Kabukicho sex club issue, they occasionally intervene. And they did with Takahiro, whom they arrested at some point. He was given a suspended jail sentence. If you don't know what it means, sadly, I do. It means that you're given a period of time where you have to show good behavior. And depending on the country, the probation conditions will be different. Fun fact, but in France, if you get probation, it doesn't appear on your criminal record. But obviously you wouldn't get probation for something very serious. That would be too easy. In August of that same year, 2017, Takahiro moves into a studio located about 3 kilometers away from his father's house. He told him that he had met a girl, he wanted to move in with her, he said he was madly in love, and he felt like it was time for him to, be independent, move on in life. And I'm assuming his father must have been really happy to hear that, because a few months prior, around June, and about a month after he received his suspended jail sentence, both of them had a conversation in which Takahiro told his father, "I don't know why I'm alive." And he also said, "I see no meaning in life." So he must have been pretty happy that his son maybe found meaning in life after all, in the form of love. And he gladly helps his son move out. He even acts as a guarantor. A guarantor, in case you don't know, is someone who agrees to pay rent in your stead if you cannot. So he's really supportive of his son. But that's when things take a drastic turn. You see, Takahiro was very good at showing this nice face to the world, this facade, especially to women. It feels like it's a COVID-free summer evening, 6 p.m., and everybody's outside making noise, bothering me. He is described by people in the Kabukicho area, other scouts mostly, as an ambitious, dangerous man who is capable of betrayal. A sort of Harvey Dent type of situation. And remember his friend from school who confessed he liked to play the choking game. And remember his ex-girlfriend who said he was much nicer than the average person, but had a fascination for death and suicide. Stop making noise. Stop making noise. I guess he always had this darkness within him, but he was able to very wisely conceal it for the longest time. Well, now that Takahiro spread his wings and flies solo in the comfort of his studio, he begins to act on his morbid obsession with death. It starts with him opening a few Twitter accounts. Now check out this picture. I hope it's clear enough. At first, when I was researching this case, I saw this screenshot a couple times and didn't notice anything weird about it until I gave it a closer look. Do you see the cuts and abrasions on the neck and wrist? Also, the name of the account is Pro Hangman. And another account he had was I Want to Die. On the I Want to Die account, he portrayed himself as someone in deep emotional pain with suicidal thoughts, someone who just wanted to share this with the world, as people would assume a cry for help, a need for comfort and love and compassion. He would post things like, "I want to forget everything," "I want to disappear." But on the other account, he would post things like, "I want to spread my knowledge in hanging. If you are at a dead end, please consult me." Hashtag crazy. On some of his posts, he would use the hashtag suicide recruitment, and he would say things like, "Let's die together." Keep in mind that this man has become a professional at luring young women to work as prostitutes for the biggest prostitution rings in Tokyo. Biggest prostitution rings in the world, really. A lot of these girls are desperate for money and in debt, as I said. He got better and better at convincing them that becoming a sex worker was a great and easy solution that would solve all their problems. So now he's transferring this skill on women with suicidal thoughts and basically telling them, "I can help you put an end to all your problems by assisting you in killing yourself." At times, he even offers to die alongside them, romanticizing suicide. How Romeo and Juliet of him. Let's skip forward to the morning of Halloween that same year, October 31st, 2017. The police come to Takahiro's door. They knock and they say to him, "We are looking for this missing person. Have you seen her?" And immediately he says, "Yes, come on in, guys. She's in my cooler." "She's where?" "In my cooler." "Okay. Which one?" As you can see on this layout of Takahiro's apartment, he has more than one cooler. I'll tell you in a minute what they find in these coolers, although I'm pretty sure you can imagine. But first, you are probably wondering why police went to his apartment looking for a missing woman who turns out to be there. Well, what happened was she went missing, and her brother, worried sick and desperately trying to find her, somehow managed to hack her social media accounts. So he's on his sister's Twitter, and he realizes that she was suicidal. He was not aware of that. And she was communicating with this guy, this pro hangman. After she posted on her account, "I want to die, but doing so alone is terrible. I'm looking for someone to die with me." Takahiro initiated a conversation with her after he saw her post, and they made a suicide pact. The brother of this missing woman asked a female friend to get in contact with Pro Hangman in order to find out as much as they can about him. Now they have his name, his address, everything. Eventually, they go to the police with the results of the investigation work that they did all by themselves. The police also found CCTV footage of the missing woman and Takahiro walking together in the area where Takahiro lives. Japan, like South Korea, is known to have camera surveillance everywhere, which in this case turned out to be very helpful. Anywho, that's how Takahiro was found. He admits to killing this missing woman straight away and tells police everything, because this missing woman is actually his last and 9th victim. So the way he proceeded was he usually would offer to meet these women in public places, sometimes a train station, sometimes he goes to their homes, and then they travel to his place together. Once they arrive at his studio, he said he would offer them some alcohol to help them relax, even sleeping pills at times. He killed his first victim in August. He moved into his studio on August 22nd. So it didn't take him too long to set up these Twitter accounts, find desperate and suicidal women, and arrange for his first meetup that would turn deadly for this poor woman. So not a suicide pact at all, even though that's how he lured them in. He later admitted that the reason he killed his first victim was because she had lent him some money that he didn't want to give back. And that's when the killer was born. He goes on with using the Twitter accounts to find more victims. He even encourages some of the people he's in contact with to not reveal their suicidal thoughts to family and friends. He said he killed his victims as soon as they would walk in and after he gave them something to relax. And at first, he tells investigators that he was just assisting these people in dying. He killed them, but he should not be convicted of first-degree murder because all his victims expressed the will to die. Well, one of them didn't. One of them was the boyfriend of one of the victims. And same as the brother, she went missing and he went looking for her. I don't know exactly how he was able to find Takahiro and how he even knew he was the one behind it or potentially behind it, but he did. And he confronted him at his apartment. Not such a great idea. And to tie loose ends, Takahiro killed him. This man was the only non-suicidal victim, and he was the only male. According to the Japan Times, Takahiro said that the first time he dismembered a body, it took him 3 days. I'm quoting, "From the second person, I was able to do it within a day." He learns quick. The police found the dismembered bodies in the coolers and in some toolboxes, 240 bones and some heads. He had gotten rid of the flesh and organs in the trash, but because he didn't want to get caught, he kept the bones and the heads. When neighbors were interviewed, they said he did go quite often to the garbage chute, and they also noticed that his ventilation fan in his bathroom was always on, like 24/7. Many of them complained of a horrid smell coming out of his apartment. Some said they never smelled anything like it, and the closest they found to describe it was it smelled like sewers, but worse. In a desperate attempt to mask the smells, Takahiro used cat litter that he poured all over the body parts that he kept. He confirmed that whatever he did to the bodies was to get rid of evidence, and some of these body parts would have traced back to him, just like in this other case, remember? I think it's that way, or that way. It's at the top. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. Takahiro also confirms his motives to investigators: sex and money. So original and uncommon. He admits that he never had the intention, as he proclaimed to his victims, to help them and die alongside them, but really it was a ruse to lure them in, rape them, rob them of everything they had. That should ring a bell, right? Again, check this one out. And he was able to make about $4,000. Some of the women that he met with the intention of killing, he actually chose to let live at the last minute because they had money and they would take care of him financially. He said that usually he would strangle his victims to death right after hitting them on the back of their heads so they would not resist. If you're saying they wanted to die, why would they resist? I guess he didn't want them to change their minds at the last minute. I mean, sometimes expressing a suicidal thought is really a cry for help. The person doesn't always want to die, they just need love and help and compassion. And Takahiro just used that against them. So he admits to murdering them with premeditation, but he thinks the justice system should take into consideration the fact that they wanted to die. In his studio, police also found items belonging to the victims, such as clothing, handbags, ID cards. I'm not sure if they were able to identify all the victims. Takahiro himself said he didn't know their real names. He just knew their Twitter account name. And in order to not get caught, he deleted all messages after killing the person he was communicating with. Smart cookie. Police also found scissors, woodwork tools, a saw, and knives covered in blood. In Japan, if found guilty of serial murders, as well as robbery murders and rape murders, and technically Takahiro could be charged with all three. The sentence would be the death penalty. And in Japan, the death penalty is carried out by hanging. Even though his lawyers insist with the murder with consent charge rather than cold-blooded premeditated murder, so first-degree murder charge, the fact that he killed a man to cover up his tracks and the autopsies revealing blunt force trauma to the back of the head don't play in his favor at all. Takahiro Shiraishi's trial began on September 2020. He pleaded guilty, and since his arrest, he's been held at the Takashima Detention Center. The end of the trial is expected for December this year. And even though this entire time his lawyers maintained that it was murder with consent, at the beginning of the trial, Takahiro himself said the reason he hit them to the back of their heads was to prevent them from resisting, and he said himself there was no consent. Defense strategy out the window. If the court finds him guilty of murder with consent, the prison sentence would be 6 months to 7 years. Unbelievable. Takahiro said, I read books that describe scenes of execution, so I don't want something that gives me physical pain. I don't want to fight in court, but I don't want to face the death penalty either. I have mixed feelings. The nerve of some people. Oh, and that's not it. He said, some people apologize in other cases, but I won't. He gave no explanation as to why he didn't want to apologize. This world is cray. Shortly after this all came to light, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey gave an interview in which he said, we need to take our responsibility, make sure that our tool is used in a positive and healthy way. Twitter made a lot of changes to their terms of use, so people wouldn't use the platform to promote and encourage self-harm. An example is that ever since this incident, the Zama killings, you can report a tweet that expresses intentions of self-harm or suicide. Japanese authorities are also working on monitoring and restricting any sort of platform where people talk about self-harm and suicide. I mean, we're talking about a country that has a suicide forest. In the year 2017, Japan ranked 7th when it comes to suicide rate. There is a sort of tolerance around suicide, and it's mostly cultural. And that would be one of the reasons that explain their high rate. It's even the leading cause of death in women aged 22 to 44 and men aged 15 to 34. I am going to put some links in the description box if you or someone you know is in need of, emotional help, emotional support. If you feel suicidal, you have to speak up. There are solutions out there. There are a lot of people willing to help. I know what it's like to be in the darkest of places and You feel like you're drowning and there's no way out, but there is. I want to quickly talk about the definition of serial killing and a few myths around serial killers. Fun fact, according to a study published on the website of the FBI, people's fascination with serial killings began in the 1880s with Jack the Ripper in London. Definition. It was different through history and from one country to the next, but there was a serial murder symposium hosted by the FBI in San Antonio, Texas, in which common factors were agreed upon, and they are as follow: one or more offenders, two or more victims, incidents occurring at different times, and there is a period of time that separates each murder, thus differentiating them from mass murder. So, the accepted and official definition of serial killing, at least in the USA, is the unlawful killing of two or more victims by the same offender/offenders in separate events. I know this definition seems like it's very short and doesn't give much of what you probably expected, as in, the psychological background and the range of motives and stuff like that, but I'm going to give you a few facts that will explain why the definition seems so short. Serial killers are not always insane or evil geniuses. They can stop killing for whatever reason. They don't kill until they die or until they get caught by police. Also, they don't always want to get caught. And this piece of information was actually quite interesting, because the study specifies that over time and with experience, some serial killers will get cocky and arrogant and overly confident. They will start taking shortcuts and they will start making mistakes. They won't be as cautious, and that's what will lead them to their arrest. Because you know how often in movies you see the killer playing, cat and mouse with the police? And it's not a fact that applies to every serial killer. Some of them want to get caught, some of them do not. In the case of Takahiro, the motive was sex. One of them was sex, and it's not always the case. This is an assumption that a lot of people will make, is that all serial killers are motivated by sex, but it's not always the case. And sometimes they even have more than one motive. Again, like Takahiro, he had the motive of sexual gratification and the motive of financial gain. And the last piece of information I want to mention is that there is no template for serial killers. They are not always white males, loners, evil geniuses with heavy mental issues. They come in different forms, and that's what's actually truly horrifying. A lot of people are often astounded when they find out that their partner was a serial killer, or their neighbor, or their child even. But again, serial killers, they don't have a typical background, a typical social status, or mental illness, or motive. Don't trust a face because it looks kind, and don't mistrust a face because it looks evil. Don't trust anyone except God and yourself. I learn so much stuff when I make those videos. Like, sometimes I get lost in articles that I read, and I found this study, this symposium published on the website of the FBI about, serial murders, and I've found also other, references in books. I was just wondering about the strict definition of serial killings, and it's just fascinating. That's why sometimes it takes me days to come up with my notes, because I just get lost in, different articles and different things. I got lost in Kabukicho. I was researching, the sex trafficking in that area and stuff. That's how I found the soapland fun fact that I wanted to share, because I thought it was funny. I mean, it's not funny, I guess. Is it? Is it funny? I don't know. Now it's time for the random item of this video. I told you it was going to be from Japan, so it totally is. I couldn't do better than this item, to be honest. You know that Japan is the birthplace of mangas and animes, right? Do you know what the difference is between a manga and an anime? Time's up. Manga is the comic book, the paper version, if you will. Anime is the cartoon, as we would say in English. Fun fact, a manga can become an anime, but an anime isn't always a manga. また文章を残した犠牲者が。エル、知っているか？
死神はリンゴしか食べない。キラメ。
Tonight's random item is... Can you hear my fridge buzzing in the background? I don't think you can, but I can. And it's annoying me. If you recognized the short clip, you know that I was going to talk about Death Note. This one was recommended by a date I had a very long time ago. This guy did not look like his picture, but you meet people for a reason, and that was obviously the reason. If you don't like reading, this one has an animated version. It's on Netflix. I don't mean the movie, I mean the animated series. Don't ever, ever, ever watch the movie that is on Netflix. I can safely say that it was unanimously hated by the entire world. Scratch that. The entire universe. Ugh. Watch the anime or read the manga or do both. The story is quite exceptional, mind-blowing. So that's it for me. Thank you again so much for watching till the end. I look forward to working on my next case. Again, if you have suggestions, I haven't made a choice yet, so comment, like, subscribe, share. And as usual, I'll see you soon. Do you like my pin? I ran out of hats, so I'm using the same one that I used on my first video. I thought I would just, tweak it a little bit. Okay, now for real. Bye.